Hey Mason, this is your Grandpa Bub. Your mom suggested that I bring some photos of me growing up on the farm to show you when I come to visit in March. Well, I thought I would make a DVD for you, which you can keep always, just in case you might get curious about your maternal genealogy when you're older. So I'll go back and start with your great 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 granddad's cousin, W.T. Wagoner. W.T. Wagoner enlarged the Wagoner Ranch near Vernon, Texas, until it contained 535,000 acres and was the largest ranch under one fence in Texas. Cattle rustlers, that is, thieves, were stealing so many of their cattle that they had to brand them to prove they were theirs. The brand they used was three backward D's because it was hard to copy. Brands were burned into the cattle's hide with a hot branding iron. The smaller the brand, the less it would hurt. My dad's, your great granddad's, brand was three vertical bars. W.T. Wagoner was friends with Will Rogers, a famous humorist in the early 1900s. The half-breed Comanche chief, Quanah Parker, was an enemy of W.T., raiding his cattle herds and killing his cowboys until he and W.T. worked out a treaty. Then they became best friends. Chief Quanah even became a member of the Vernon, Texas School Board. When presiding at paleface activities, he wore a suit and tie, but when presiding over Comanche activities, he wore his full chieftain headdress. He, W.T. Wagoner, and other Red River Valley ranchers would hunt wolves on horseback with dogs. They invited the President of the United States, Teddy Roosevelt, to come to Texas and join them on a wolf hunt. President Roosevelt accepted their invitation. A big, strong man named Jack Abernathy joined them, and when the dogs cornered a wolf, Abernathy rode up over the wolf, jumped off his horse, took the wolf by his lower jaw, and raised it up to the president. Notice the heavy leather glove on Jack's left hand. This pleased Roosevelt, and he yelled, "Bully, bully!" At the end of their hunt, they all galloped into Vernon, firing their pistols into the sky. W.T. struck oil on his ranch and built an office building in downtown Fort Worth, Texas. His plans were for a 16-story building, but when he learned that someone was building an 18-story, he added 4 more floors so that at that time his building was the tallest west of the Mississippi River. W.T. also built a mansion in an exclusive part of Fort Worth called Thistle Hill. This mansion is now open for public tours conducted by the Fort Worth Historical Society. W.T.'s sons got involved in breeding and racing quarter horses. Their prize stud horse, Pocowano, meaning little good or pretty good, is still in the bloodline of some of today's racing quarter horses. Mason, this is your great great granddad and my granddad, Ed Wagoner. His wife, Pernisa, is my grandmother and your great great grandmother. She was just 14 years old when they got married. These are their hats. Granddad Ed smoked cigarettes. This was long ago, before people knew that smoking was bad for you. He rolled his own using Prince Albert tobacco from a can, which he shook into little tissue papers. then wet the paper with his tongue so that it would hold the cigarette together. Smoking these cigarettes ruined his lungs so that he got pneumonia and died younger than he should have. This is my maternal grandmother and your great-great-grandmother, Mary Frances Williams, and her husband, J.J. Williams, your great-great-granddad. Now, Mason, these are my parents, your maternal great-grandparents. I called my dad by his nickname, Shack. Shack was 6 feet 7 inches tall. When someone would ask him how tall he would answer 5 feet and 19 inches. Then they would exclaim, "You sure look taller than that." Shack played basketball. Here he is with his high school team who went to the state tournament his senior year. He's the tall one in the back. Your great-grandmother, Hazel, was an artist. She painted beautiful oil paintings. I have some of them, which someday may be yours. I painted a watercolor of her gathering corn. She always wore a blue smock and a sunbonnet which shaded her face. Now that she is in heaven, I'm going to paint an angel face in her sunbonnet with a halo over it. These are 4 generations of your maternal ancestors. Me in my dad's arms, my granddad, and my great-granddad. This is me at about 1 year of age with my older sister. And this is me on my 4th birthday. Shack built this 1-horse open sleigh to take us kids riding. This is an aerial view of our farmhouse and barn when I was in high school. We raised cows, chickens, and pigs. One year, Shack gave my younger brother, Sonny, and me a 5-acre field to grow potatoes on. He told us that if we planted, cultivated, and harvested them, we could have the profit when we sold them to spend as we pleased. We bought a Lionel train set. We were poor and ate what we could grow or shoot. We didn't know that meat wasn't healthy for people to eat. Once I shot an American merganser duck. This was different from any duck I'd ever seen. It was a big fat duck, so I dressed him and spent a whole morning preparing him, complete with dressing, according to a Sportsophile magazine recipe. Then we all sat down to enjoy our duck dinner. No one could eat it, though, because it tasted so awful. What I learned later was that mergansers are fish-eating ducks, and this affects their taste. We threw the duck out for our dog, but he wouldn't eat it either. Sonny and I raised pet mallard ducks. Once we noticed that our pet ducks were disappearing. Then we found their feathers and bones around a swift foxhole. So we set a steel trap at the hole opening to catch the fox. Instead, what we caught was a burrowing owl. These owls inhabit and nest in foxholes. I took hold of the trap and told Sonny to hold the owl while I released the trap. The owl buried its talons in Sonny's hand, however, and it would not let go even after he was free from the trap. I had to choke the owl until he turned Sonny loose. Yeah, I was always getting Sonny in trouble. Once we stopped to talk while walking in a dry lake bed, which was grown up in tall reeds. I noticed a bittern sitting motionless at Sonny's feet. Bitterns have a long neck and a long, sharp beak with feathers which blend in with the reeds. I pointed the bittern out to Sonny and told him to grab it. He did and held it up to look at it. I saw a blur of lightning-fast motion from the bittern's neck and head, and a spurt of blood from Sonny's cheek. The sharp beak had penetrated to Sonny's cheekbone. Sonny set the bittern down, and she settled back down on her nest of eggs as we walked away. This is the tractor which I spent untold hours farming with, starting when I was 10 years old. We raised wheat and harvested it with large combines. This is a hay mower. Once, when I was mowing hay, I passed right over a skunk, which I could not see in the tall hay. He sprayed me all over. Some of it would have hit me right in the face if I hadn't had my mouth open. We wore heavy canvas aprons or leather chaps when hauling hay because the coarse stems would wear right through our levis. Flatbed semi-trailer truck drivers traveling by on the highway would see our baled hay in the field and would turn in to buy a load of it. I would stack it on their truck up to a height of 7 tiers. It had to be carefully stacked to travel 300 or 400 miles and not fall over. We had to bale hay at night because it was so dry in the day. All the leaves would shatter off and leave just a bale of stems. One night I went out to bale hay wearing a t-shirt. By the wee hours of the morning, I was getting cold. I saw headlights coming across the field toward me. It was Shaq, and he handed me a Pepsi Cola. I wasn't thirsty at all, just cold. So I declined the Pepsi and said to Shaq, "I want a Coke." Shaq got back in his pickup and drove away. About 45 minutes later, I saw his headlights coming again. He got out and handed me a Coke. I just took the Coke and kept on baling. Another crop we grew was cotton. Cotton plants make green pods called bolls. These bolls ripen and begin to break open, showing the white cotton fibers inside. In time, the bolls open completely, and the fluffy cotton comes forth when it is ready to be harvested. We picked our cotton by hand, stuffing it into long canvas bags, which we drug along until full. Then we drug the bag to the cotton trailer to weigh and empty it. When the trailer was full, it was taken to the cotton gin, which separated the cotton fibers from the fragments of boll hulls. Then the cotton was bound into bales and sent away to be processed and made into clothing and other products. We grew tomatoes in small garden patches and sold them by the basket. Carrots were also a garden-type crop, which we dug and sold by the bunch. I cultivated large fields for our corn crops. We used a large machine to cut most of our corn crop into ensilage, which we fed to our dairy cows. A lot of food and water was required because some of the cows produced up to 50 pounds of milk per day, and we had over 100 of these cows. We also gathered some of the ear corn by hand to feed our hogs. I played right end on our high school football team and got my nose broken because back then football helmets were wide open across the face. I was a substitute school bus driver during my senior year. Since Shaq needed help with the livestock and crops, I took turns with Sonny, the second oldest of the three of us boys, going to Abilene Christian College a semester at a time. Some of my ACC friends and I would drive to Austin, Texas on a Friday evening to attend the Texas Relays. After the Friday night events were completed and the crowd had left the stadium, we would get in my car and drive up the concession truck ramp underneath the stadium seats to the top of the stadium where there was a restroom. We would set up our cots and sleeping bags there and spend the night. Once there was a full moon, so we went down to the track in our underwear and ran races by moonlight. Here we are in the stands early on a Saturday morning, previous to leaving the stadium before anyone arrived. Then we would pay admission to re-enter the stadium for Saturday's events. Some of us would enter the Lake Sweetwater Rattlesnake Roundup. I learned to respect and appreciate rattlesnakes and to leave them alone unless they were near or in my house. I joined the Army upon graduation from ACC, and they trained me to be an Army medic. I was in the Army Reserves for 5.5 years, but this was right between Korea and Vietnam, so I never got called up. During this time, I did some mountain climbing. Here I am signing in on the register at the top of Wheeler Peak, the highest mountain in New Mexico. In 1962, I entered the University of Houston College of Optometry. Upon graduation in 1965, I went into practice in Roswell's Plaza Medical Center. I was in solo practice for 12.5 years, during which time I built a cabin in Sierra Vista Estates near Ruidoso, New Mexico. Also, I made a 4.5-day raft trip down the Grand Canyon of the Colorado River. My favorite daughter was born April 8, 1975. Here she is with her in her granddad's arms, coming down out of his big John Deere tractor. Dayla was just a year old when we took her snow skiing at Taos Ski Valley. She still had a pacifier in her mouth, skiing on my shoulders. The next year, I rigged a harness to help her get her ski legs. Her first little skis were plastic. Dayla took a raft trip with me in Jamaica and water skied behind me in our driveway. Frank Odom, Dayla, and I drove up St. Helens Mountain 6 months after the whole mountaintop blew off in a volcano eruption. That was May 18, 1980. As we were driving up over the rubble and ashes, the top of the mountain was shrouded in clouds. We decided to stop and eat our picnic lunch. While we were eating, the cloud cover lifted, and right before us appeared the blown-out summit with smoke rising out of it. Notice the ash and rubble surrounding Dayla here. This is the rig we took your mom and her big thoroughbred horse, La Bamba, to horse shows in. She was southeastern New Mexico junior jumper champion in 1988. In 1980, I took in a partner. We built a new office in the Berendo Medical Square on Country Club Road in Roswell and practiced together for 12 and a half years. In 1994, I made a medical mission trip to Timișoara, Romania. In 1995, I took a contract with the United States Indian Health Service to provide eye care to the Mescalero Apache tribe in the Mescalero Indian Hospital. The purchasing agent there, James Parker, was a great-great-grandson of Chief Quanah Parker. Small world. I got involved in slalom snow ski racing, and in February 2000, I competed in the National Senior Winter Olympic Games in Lake Placid, New York. This included opening ceremonies, lighting of the Olympic flame, and so forth. Loma Linda Medical Center was conducting research on senior athletes there, and I volunteered to participate. Before the race, they put a heart monitor on me with a wrist switch, which I had to remember to turn on when I was in the starting gate. This is the scoreboard of the top 3 racers after the first of our 2 runs. The 2 runs were averaged together, and I missed winning the gold medal by 24/100ths of a second. Ted Fendick of Binghamton, New York, is on the gold medal pedestal here. I am to his right on the silver medal pedestal, and David Fite of Hollister, New Hampshire, is to his left on the bronze medal pedestal. They also awarded ribbons to the 4th and 5th places. I guess this was my lifetime 15 minutes of fame. In 1997, I made a medical mission trip to Guatemala City and was instrumental in restoring sight to 20-year-old Byron Huertes, who had been blind since birth. Byron then went to college and graduated in the top 10% of his class. My next adventure was riding a mule down the south rim of the Grand Canyon on Bright Angel Trail, a 9-mile-long pathway down to the Colorado River. In 2003, I qualified to compete in the National NASTAR Championships held in Park City, Utah. Your mom and dad joined me there a day before the race, and we got to ski together just for the fun of it. NASTAR took racers' best of 2 runs, and mine was 7th out of 20 racers. Here's a photo of you and Gigi when you were about a year old, Mason. Gigi was a cheerleader when she was in high school. A bucket list item that Gigi had to cross off was jumping out of an airplane at 15,000 feet and free falling for a mile before parachute opening for a safe landing on Mother Earth. Here I am working on your rocking horse, Mason. I used a chainsaw to rough it in, then smaller tools to refine the details. In the fall of 2009, Gigi and I made a medical mission trip to Haiti to see what we could do for the jungle people there who were going blind. They appreciated what we did, but the Vodonist villagers along the jungle road we had to travel hated us and once blocked the road, came up to us with machetes, and demanded ransom money. When we paid them, they opened the road and let us return to Cap Haitien. This is the opening ceremony of the 2010 Arizona State Senior Olympic Games. It included taking the Senior Olympic Pledge and other festivities. Here, some of my competitors and I are awaiting our call to the starting gate. I had a good run and won the gold medal in my age bracket. Here we are, Mason, at the Ruidoso Downs horse race track when you came to see me in 2011. Do you remember driving my John Deere skidster? I turned Johnny, as we called it, upside down once when I tried to lift a heavy tree trunk. And do you remember our hike down to the old S train trestle, which had collapsed back in the 1930s? Also, our visit to the White Sands National Monument to slide down the sand dunes. Well, I hope this video will be helpful to you in the future, Mason, to know who your Grandpa Bub was.